Howdy, everyone. It's Reese, aka Bearman Prime, on this November 6th. Welcome back to my Read the Bible in a Year series. Thanks again for joining me. God bless you all. Card in the top right hand corner for the rest of the playlist, and please hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. I really do appreciate it. So we're still following Paul on his second missionary journey. I think we're still on. At this point, he has stopped in Ephesus, and he's continuing to preach and teach and plant the seed of the good news here. So let's continue on with that journey. Let's go back to Acts chapter 19 and pick it up in verse 21. After this, Paul made plans to go to Jerusalem. He planned to go through the regions of Macedonia and Achaia, and then go to Jerusalem. He thought, after I visit Jerusalem, I must also visit Rome. Timothy and Erastus were two of his helpers. Paul sent them ahead to Macedonia, but he stayed in Asia for a while. Verse 23. But during that time there was some trouble in Ephesus about the way. This is how it all happened. There was a man named Demetrius. He worked with silver. He made little silver models that looked like the temple of the goddess Artemis. The men who did this work made a lot of money. Demetrius had a meeting with these men and some others who did the same kind of work. He told them, "Men, you know that we make a lot of money from our business, but look at what this man Paul is doing. Listen to what he is saying. He has convinced many people in Ephesus and all over Asia to change their religion. He says the gods that people make by hand are not real. I'm afraid this is going to turn people against our business. But there is also another problem. People will begin to think that the temple of the great goddess Artemis is not important. Her greatness will be destroyed, and Artemis is the goddess that everyone in Asia and the whole world worships." When the men heard this, they became very angry. They shouted, "Great is Artemis, the goddess of Ephesus!" The whole city was thrown into confusion. The people grabbed Gaius and Aristarchus, men from Macedonia who were traveling with Paul, and rushed all together into the stadium. Paul wanted to go in and talk to the people, but the Lord's followers did not let him go. Also, some leaders of the country who were friends of Paul sent him a message, telling him not to go into the stadium. Some people were shouting one thing, and others were shouting something else. The meeting was very confused. Most of the people did not know why they had come there. Some Jews made a man named Alexander stand before the crowd, and they told him what to say. Alexander waved his hand, trying to explain things to the people. But when the people saw that Alexander was a Jew, they all began shouting the same thing. For 2 hours they continued shouting, "Great is Artemis of Ephesus! Great is Artemis of Ephesus! Great is Artemis!" Then the city clerk persuaded the people to be quiet. He said, "Men of Ephesus, everyone knows that Ephesus is the city that keeps the temple of the great goddess Artemis. Everyone knows that we also keep her holy rock. No one can deny this, so you should be quiet. You must stop and think before you do anything else. You brought these men here, but they have not said anything bad against our goddess. They have not stolen anything from her temple. We have courts of law, and there are judges. Do Demetrius and those men who work with him have a charge against anyone? They should go to the courts. Let them argue with each other there. Is there something else you want to talk about? Then come to the regular town meeting of the people. It can be decided there. I say this because someone might see this trouble today and say we are rioting. We could not explain all this trouble because there was no real reason for this meeting." After the city clerk said this, he told the people to go home. Well, so what happened? Well, basically it was a riot. So we have this guy Demetrius, and he's a silversmith. He's a craftsman, handiworker, and he makes models of the temple of the goddess Artemis. Artemis is one of the Greek goddesses. She's the god of wisdom, I believe, in their culture. But it's a very lucrative business, especially among the Greeks and the pagans here. He gets a lot of money from making these models, these idols, right? And so do all the other people who worship Artemis or maybe some of the other gods there. And they're concerned and they're frustrated about what Paul is saying about the true God. They're, converting people to this new way of thinking, this new religion, and they begin to put the pieces together and say, if people stop worshiping Artemis, then they're not going to need these idols, these trophies we make. And if they don't do that, then we're out of money. We're out of business. And of course, they just can't have that. And so they're stirring things up. They want something to be done. They are so arrogant to believe that Artemis is the goddess that everyone in Asia and the whole world worships. How arrogant is that? I was just like, wow, that is, even as I read it, right? And so the fires were stoked and the riot begins. They bring these two people, Gaius and Aristarchus, we were traveling with Paul to the stadium, and it's just a mob. It's just, noise and shouting and loud. And some people, they were like, what are we doing here? I don't know. But everyone's yelling, so we should yell too. I mean, that's literally what happened. And then it started to kind of come into focus here when they brought Alexander before them, and Alexander was a Jew, and they're like, oh, you're one of them. No, great is Artemis, great is Artemis. And then finally this clerk, I guess he's a leader of the city, and he's like, y'all, calm down, okay? Calm down. These guys haven't done anything against Artemis yet, right? They haven't stolen anything from her temple. They haven't said anything against her. So why are we shouting and yelling and doing all this stuff, okay? If you have a grievance, take it to the courts. If you have something to say, do it at the regular town meetings. We don't need to riot. We don't need to be a mob. So go home. And they did. And that was the trouble in Ephesus. All because some people decided not to worship Artemis, but to worship the true God. That's the kind of trouble that we Christians sometimes make. It is what it is. Anyway, that's all for today. We'll pick it up there tomorrow. Thank you again for joining me. I sure do appreciate it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.